I'm telling you, Adrian, it was the leprechaun.
Really? You had to go there? Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Chartreuse Leprechaun. My name is Mark, your host, and it's time for our monthly update video. So, in case you're not aware, this is a video we do around the middle of every month where we talk about whatever's been going on around here. And we had some real doozies this month, too. In this month's episode, we have some programming news. We have AT&T Sucks Episode 3, which is actually the full story, so buckle up. It's kind of a long one. We got gardening news and a health update. As always, the timestamps will be in the description below, so watch straight through. You can skip around, whatever works for you. I do ask that you watch it all, though, because as usual, we'd like your feedback on a couple of things. So let's start off with some programming news. First, the downside. As you all know, we had to cancel a couple of live streams last month. One was because of my internet service provider, AT&T, and the fact that they suck. We did a couple of quick videos about that, and we'll get to the rest of the story a little bit later. Just trust me when I say the leprechaun took full advantage of the situation. We also had to cancel a couple of live streams for medical stuff, and we'll get to more on that later as well. On the bright side, we are about to be in a complete set of new series. We just started Forever Skies and Chernobyl Light last month, and we'll be finishing BioShock Infinite this week and replacing it with... You know what? I think I'll keep that a secret for now. Which reminds me, I've kind of decided that the Monday series is going to be classic and older games, BioShock Infinite, for example, or fun games like the Dungeon Crawler Going Under, where we got to play with office supplies as weapons. And I have a lot of older games available, courtesy of my son Dirt now.
Oh yeah, that's his real Steam name too.
And you can check out the Steam game list linked in the description below to see what all of them are. There are some good ones in there. Of course, some of them have no interest for me whatsoever. And, you know, there's no way we're ever going to be able to play all of them, and certainly not with how long it takes me to do a playthrough. However, I am interested in your game suggestions. So if there's something you want to see me take a crack at, whether it's on the list or not, let me know. Put your suggestions in the comments below. You can put them on the YouTube community tab. You can drop a comment in our Discord. No guarantees we'll play it, but I'm certainly willing to take a look. And now it's time for Tech Education, the part of the video where I talk about the things we've learned on the technical side during the last month. And here it is, the part you've all been waiting for, right? It's now time for the rest of the AT&T Sucks story. Well, now, technically, this ain't tech education, but we're going to include this here anyway. And I know we've already covered some of this, but for the benefit of those who didn't watch those episodes, I thought we'd just start from the beginning. So, we had a friend come over on a Monday, and she and my wife were doing something internet. So we set them up with the password to connect to our Wi-Fi. Everything was fine. Until they left. That's when the Wi-Fi network went down. Everything hardwired to the router was working fine, which probably should have been a clue. Now, we assumed it was a system/software update by AT&T because they do those at the dumbest time, like right before dinner, after the evening news, or any time during the day. You know, when people are actually using the internet. Only it didn't come back up. And the next day, it still wasn't up. So I rebooted the router. You know, the normal first troubleshooting step, also something I've done I don't know how many times before, except that didn't fix it. So I called AT&T. The rep looked at our network activity and told me the router was there, but it was back at the factory default settings. And it was in that state because I reset the router. Say, what now? The rep then doubled down on that craziness by telling me my reboot is what caused the Wi-Fi to stop working, completely ignoring the timeline that the Wi-Fi stopped working first causing me to do the reboot. Well, we went round and round that circle a couple times, and well, yeah, I went full-on hockey coach, rip the paint off the walls mode. And yeah, I played the supervisor manager card too. See, I did inventory control and project management for Office Depot. I ran a regional distribution center for a battery company. I was a supervisor in call center services for a financial services company. I know how all this stuff is supposed to work. I went back over the timeline twice, still in full hockey coach mode, by the way, pointing out that since they didn't make any changes and I didn't make any changes, there must be a problem with the router, right? Well, the third time around, he simply said, I'll send a new router. And that phone call took 34 minutes. The whole thing should have been handled in 5 minutes, 10 tops. So the replacement router arrives the next day, just like it was supposed to. It was supposed to have an ONT cable, that's what they call it, a power supply cable, a network power cable, and some additional cables for hooking up parentheses. And all it had was the power supply cable. Additionally, the box had tape holding it closed. The same panel that was taped down was glued in place, and inside the box was the return shipping label with my name and address properly placed on it. All of which means a physical person had the box open and either took the parts out or didn't put them in. And that led to the hour and 15-minute interaction the next day that I described in episode 1. That interaction was via their online chat function, and it involved 3 different representatives. The first one tried to have a technician come out to assist me, which would have been a billable event, by the way. About 15 or 20 minutes of going round and round and round, they finally disclosed there's a specialty team that deals with these issues, and I'm being transferred. Seriously? Y'all couldn't have just led with that? And the person in that group said not to worry, because they were taking ownership of the situation and would solve the problem. Well, after 10 or 15 minutes of doing absolutely nothing, they transferred me to a supervisor. And the supervisor, first response was to tell me I can go online to the AT&T parts store and buy the missing part. I asked why he thought me spending my money to fix a problem they created was a good idea. 8 minutes of silence later, he didn't answer the question. He just repeated the answer. Yeah, tried to blame that long delay on the way their systems work too. So in chat, I played the supervisor manager card again and reiterated my question. This time I included the real solution would be to just send a new router. 6 minutes of silence later, I got more or less a deflection of my question. So yeah, I went into hockey coach mode again. Chat room version, of course. All caps, lots of exclamation points, all of that. Asking, among other things, repeatedly I would add, why he kept insulting my intelligence with stupid questions and answers. This was the point when I ran into the chat with the third person, supposedly a supervisor. Remember? Where they offered to send a replacement box. And it took another 15 minutes to get that done. And I had to clarify how this would work because it now involves 3 packages, 2 of which are being returned. You know, something they were supposed to do, right? I mean, it's their job to make sure I understand what's going to happen. Well, after all, they were a supervisor, right? So that interaction took place on a Wednesday. And wonder of wonders, the router never showed up. Why? Well, there's some doubt about that because I got 2 different answers when I used their chat function again on Friday morning. Answer number 1 from the first rep was the order never got placed. Answer number 2 from the tech support rep that she transferred me to was the order was entered, but it had an error and never processed. Which being interpreted means there was an error by a supervisor that nobody got notified about, and it never got fixed. And that, by the way, was a full hour into this interaction. So at this point in the evolving saga, we are on rep number 7, interaction number 3, with a full 6 or 7 hours invested, not including hold time, and it's now Friday afternoon. So the next box shows up on Saturday, like it was supposed to. Missing all the same items. So I called them this time, and I'm not quite sure why, but I did not go full hockey coach supervisor on them. After reviewing all this with the first rep, they transfer me to a loyalty specialist. I get a tiny discount for a short period of time, get the direct number to AT&T technical support, and get transferred to said technical support. And I'm now 30 minutes into this interaction, and this is where I get told that since I have existing service, they don't ship all the items in the box. Would have been nice to know that, I don't know, maybe say 3 days ago. So I hang up the phone politely, and I turn down having tech support stay on the line with me to go through the connection and all of that. I was actually being nice. Among other things, I do actually know what I'm doing. Well, most of the time anyway. And I was also installing a switch, a network switch, which meant I had to do some rewiring, and I didn't want to waste their time. And this is where the Leprechaun got fully involved. I disconnect the faulty router. Remember for later that the Wi-Fi was the problem. It worked perfectly for items hardwired to it, like my computer. So yeah, I disconnect the faulty router, and I run the computer wires to the switch, and I connect the switch to the router, and I reconnect the router to the internet, except there's no internet signal to the router. So I start swapping out parts, and I discover there's actually no signal being received by any of the routers. And remember, we had 3 of them at this point. So I call tech support direct, and they troubleshoot. Pretty happy with the steps I've taken. In fact, I can hear the rep clicking through all the tech tree screens and whatnot as I tell him what I've done. And we pretty quickly determine it's not something I can fix and schedule a technician to come out between 12 and 4 on Monday. Well, this being a weekend, I was okay with that. Not happy, but I understood. Like I said, it's a weekend, and I let it go at that. In fact, I was pretty satisfied with this rep. I thought they did a solid job of trying to sort this out. But that night, I had a nagging question in my head. I could not remember if we ever checked to see whether or not the internet signal was actually reaching the house. So I called tech support on Sunday morning. And remember, this whole thing started on Tuesday. And as the rep is researching that, I log into my AT&T account to check something else and discover the time for my technician visit has changed. Remember, originally set to be from between 12 and 4 on Monday. Well, it's now set for between 4 and 8. So yeah, I asked about that. And after a little digging by the tech support rep I'm talking to, turns out the rep I spoke with who originally scheduled the appointment changed it after our conversation ended. So much for solid job performance. Well, after determining the service is actually reaching the house and I really do need a technician, the current rep also discovered there's a service slot available that night between 4 and 8. This was a solid job. I mean, it really was. The guy actually called that night to let me know the technician was on the way, so yeah, solid job. So the technician arrives that night and goes through everything with me. Then he starts chasing wires, and it took about 20 minutes, and he found the problem. It was a wire that I forgot to connect. Now, to be fair, it was a black wire that got dropped on top of a bunch of other black wires on the floor behind the router in the shadows.
See, Adrian, I told you the Leprechaun did it.
Now, since the problem was inside the house and it wasn't any of their gear, I knew I was going to get charged for it. And I pretty much resigned myself to that. Not in the budget, but the problem was solved, and that's what mattered in the end. Except the technician didn't do that. No idea how he wrote this up for the books, but I'm not being charged. The final roundup, the TLDR, if you will. AT&T customer service is trash. They can't help their clients out of a wet paper bag. And AT&T technical support, kind of a mixed bag. The two tech reps I was connected during the early chats and phone calls, horrible, 0% rating. They accomplished nothing. The first person I got after customer loyalty, 50% rating. Explained what was really going on with the boxes. They did a solid job of troubleshooting. But changing an appointment time after disconnecting with the customer and not telling them? Really? Yeah, I know. I'm being really generous with that 50% rating. Now, the person I spoke with directly on the phone, 100% rating. They even tried directing me around the house looking for things and linked in through my phone to see what I was seeing. Solid work. Corrected the technician visit problem, giving me a better appointment time, and they called to let me know the tech was on the way. Like I said, totally stellar job. The technician, 100% rating. Listened to everything I'd done, asked solid questions to clarify, got straight to the real problem, which was the wires, found the issue pretty fast, and took care of the customer. Short version, never, ever, ever trust AT&T customer service. They are, best I can tell, mostly incompetent. Heck, once back in the day, I got transferred to accounts payable for a service issue. You will occasionally get one that actually does a good job, but mostly, yeah, they're incompetent. The specialty folks, you are far more likely to get people that know what they're doing and will take care of you, hopefully. Maybe. Now, we actually did have some true tech updates, stuff we got wrong because, well, the Leprechaun, of course, and we had a few improvements and some changes, but I think we'll hold those till next. Meanwhile, in something a little more amusing, I mentioned back in March or maybe April that we'd replanted our garden. The stacker planter thing, along with some 5-gallon buckets. The stacker held onions, carrots, lettuce, beans, and squash. That collection of 5-gallon buckets broke down to 2 buckets for peas, 2 for okra, 2 for pinto beans, and the rest were for potatoes, 3 different varieties. And this was our wonderful harvest. Now, given that our first attempt got absolutely nothing because we planted too late and the frost killed it all, I'm calling this a win. Our next planting goes in the ground over the next week or two, so, well, let you know how that goes in a couple of months. And now I need to let you know about some possible issues with programming. At the end of this month, we're headed out of town for a surprise birthday party. Hopefully we can continue to keep this a secret. We'll see. Pretty sure I'll be able to get everything published in time for that one, though. Gonna be a lot of prep work for it, so we'll see. Ow! And then in mid-September, we're headed off to spend a week or so with my mother, and that one's going to be a lot trickier. Believe it or not, it's a place that has no internet other than mobile, and even that's a little sketchy. Hazards of living in the middle of the United States. I can usually publish stuff ahead of time for like one weekend, but the rushed work schedule, yeah, it causes a lot of brain fatigue. This trip will be at least 2 weekends. Not looking forward to that, but we'll see how we do. And that leads us to our health update. As I mentioned in our AT&T Sucks video, episode 1 or 2, I don't remember how, I filed the appeal with the insurance company. Now, let's take a minute to bring everyone up to speed on how all this was supposed to work. My former employer had disability insurance for their employees, and once doctors said I couldn't work, that insurance kicked in at 60% of my income. The insurance company began paying that with the caveat that I apply for Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. Once SSDI kicked in, the insurance company then pays the difference between SSDI and that 60% figure, and that works out to about 40% of my income. Now, when that neurologist, who never did any testing, told the insurance company I could go back to work because he didn't have any tests saying that I couldn't, yeah, they canceled their part of the payout, so we lost 40% of our income. The problem was the health insurance plan I had. Coverage under the company-provided plan ended, which took away access to the specialty providers I was seeing, and the new insurance plan didn't include any specialists. For example, concern about headache specialists. Their staff said there's no such thing as a headache specialist. You know, the ones I'd been seeing for 6 years. They said, Any neurologist can do that. However, because SSDI got approved, I could go back to the specialist I was seeing with the medical evidence they determined. We filed the appeal to get the money reinstated. So far, the insurance company has acknowledged receipt of the appeal and that they are reviewing it. And I got a phone call from the rep doing the review. And I know the next step is them pulling reports and information and all that from the doctors and testing facilities, and that may take a while. So the last time I filed an appeal, it took nearly 8 months, and I believe it was 4 dispute attempts before they agreed I was right. And I think I have a much stronger case now. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now, normally at this point, I would make a spiritual note of some description or another, but I think it's gone on long enough. This is going to be enough for now. Thank you for spending your time with us here today at the Chartreuse Leprechaun. It's always appreciated. It's also always fun reviewing the antics and deeds of the Chartreuse Leprechaun, right? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love game suggestions, improvement ideas, gameplay tips, please no spoilers, pretty much anything you have that'll help us get better. And if you enjoy our content here, please hit that like button, subscribe, set yourself up for notifications. You know the drill on all of that. And also, if you'd like to support us here at the Chartreuse Leprechaun, check out the links in the description below. But finally, remember, the Leprechaun is out there, and his mission in life is to mess things up, as evidenced by the whole AT&T sucks saga. So always, always, always remember that if you see it, and you can't quite explain it, you can be positive the Leprechaun did it. Now you have yourselves a great day. The Leprechaun did it. Now you have yourselves a great day, and we will see you here next time on the Chartreuse Leprechaun. Bye-bye.